Aria Collins. What's up? How are you?
I am well. How are you? Happy
Oh,
Friday.
happy Friday. Happy Friday. So good to connect with you. We've been trying so hard to get together to have this conversation.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to learn more about what you do and how you're making the world a better place through your work. So I'd like to begin with really just trying to get a better understanding as you reflect back on your life and your career. What would you say is a defining moment that helped lead you to where you are today?
Oh, that's such a good question. What do I think was my defining moment that led to where I am today? I would honestly say moving to New York City. I was born and raised in the Caribbean for about 13 years of my life. I'm from Grenada, if anybody's listening and from the Caribbean, shout out to you. When I was applying for high schools, we went into an office. It's so vague to me now, but I just kind of remembered going through like this physical book of a bunch of schools that was available at New York City. And I remember feeling like overwhelmed at the different options that I had, but I was kind of like intrigued at the fact that I was able to go to a high school that would focus on a specific like niche. And that's where it kind of hit me like, wow, there's like opportunities outside of your traditional roles that you'll see someone as like your doctor, your lawyer, whatever you want to identify as traditional. It made me realize like, wow, there's different creative paths that I could take. Granted, I wanted to go to fashion school and I'm not in the fashion industry anymore, but it still brought me in a direction that definitely changed my life.
And then so from that point, what was your pivot? You know, once you left high school, going into college, how did you get into sort of the space that you're in now?
Oh, that's hard. I just kind of, is it kind of weird for me to say that I kind of just felt like I just felt it in my soul? Like I just kind of knew that I wanted to be in a space where I'm like, I wanted to be in a space that just felt a little bit more creative, and I felt like I could like tap into that side of my brain a little bit more in terms of like what I write or what I do and the stories that we tell. I wanted to really have my voice. I think that's what it was. I wanted to find a way to still have a voice within the community and share authentic stories as it relates to my culture or our culture in general. So like that was something that has always been like burning in me, and it was just about finding the right outlet to express that in. So it was even better to know that I can make money off doing something that's just like burning in my soul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as you sort of think about, uh, looking for a platform to express yourself and to share your voice and your lived experiences, were there any examples, whether it was in your community in Grenada or when you came to the U.S. and you looked around, or you listened to the radio, or you watched television or watched a movie and was like, I want to be like her, I want to do that. Oftentimes, as we come up, we look at these sort of role models or people that, we aspire to be like, or at least get into that, in that lane. Was there a group of people or someone in particular that sort of inspired you to follow this path?
Yes, 100%. As cheesy as it sounds, I'll even backtrack a little bit. I think as cheesy as it sounds, it was a television show, Degrassi, that made me a little bit, and I was in high school and I was just about entering high school in New York. So it like was my age range, my target audience. It was a show like that kind of got me curious about like actors in general. And once I started I almost started like a rabbit hole. Like I started learning about actors, and then I learned about the people behind the camera. Then I learned about the people that's writing the stories. Then I learned about the people who's editing. Then I learned about the people who's doing the sound. So like I ended up in that rabbit hole within media. And then I definitely got my different inspiration from people like Shonda Rhimes, and just seeing that she was a black woman in this industry. But then as I got a little bit older and I started working in entertainment, I realized that I wanted to kind of pivot a little bit more in marketing and advertising, because I didn't realize that I have a business brain too. And within this industry specifically, I feel like I get to like think about brands and think about how people like you and me can make money off, like how we can represent ourselves as a brand and be able to make money off of that and still be able to implement that elements of entertainment and creativity in it.
Awesome. So you are, from what I understand, a senior brand strategist for Group Black.
I am.
Correct.
I am.
Tell me about the interview. When you first sat down in front of this organization, understanding what they were looking for, understanding your own lived experience, I'm always curious to see how people executed in those moments. A lot of our listeners are college students or recent graduates, and we tend to get nervous and we tend to doubt ourselves in those spaces, particularly if it's an opportunity where we deem the dream job or the dream opportunity, right? Walk me through sort of your preparation for the interview and how it went. Obviously, it went well. You're a senior brand strategist for them, so obviously it went well. But
it did, yeah.
Walk me through that.
So, Group Black is actually like that interview process was definitely interesting in itself, in the sense that I kind of went after what I wanted. So by the time that I got to the interview process, I feel like I was able to knock it in the park. Like, I had found out I was working at a previous media company, Fortune 500, super large company. And I was listening to this, like, it was almost like a podcast episode or something. I don't even know how I found it, but it was a seminar that talked about different Black-owned media companies. And I was like, whoa, Black-owned media? Like, I need to know more about that. So I saw Group Black. I did some LinkedIn stalking. LinkedIn is your friend. And I found a couple people that already worked at Group Black, and I honestly just shoot my shot. Like, I just messaged them saying like, hey, I just kind of heard cool things about your company. Like, I genuinely want to learn more. Like, in the back of my head, I'm definitely already prepping and plotting and scheming, but I wanted to make sure that I came across like, I just genuinely want to have a conversation with you and like get a sense of what you're doing, what your company's doing, and what you're doing to figure out where I could fit in. So by having those initial conversations where I just came across very like natural and curious, definitely is what sparked where I am today. So I was able to speak to 3 people at 3 different parts of the company and kind of able to like strategize, okay, so this role is not the role that I want. This role I probably won't do that good in, but this role definitely sounds like the experience that I have, where I want to go, where I see myself. It was like perfect. So once I had that background knowledge, like I did my homework, I spoke to people, that's when I had got the actual official interview. So by the time I got to the interview process, I knew the person that was interviewing me, if I'm being honest. So it was almost like, hey, how are you? How's it been going since we last spoke? But I think so, I would say to anybody listening, like, don't be scared to shoot your shot. Don't be scared to do your own homework. Like, you don't always have to come across like, yes, I need a job. Like, I need to get a job. Like, sometimes it's better to just come across like, I want you to talk more about you, and I want you to tell me more about what you're doing, because when the opportunities are available, they will bring it to you. Because this role was actually the same person I spoke to kind of just emailed me like a week or 2 after saying like, hey, I'm gonna be hiring for a brand strategist. Like, I definitely want you to apply. And then once I read the job description, I was like, yeah, that's me. I'm totally gonna apply. So it kind of just trickled down after that.
Okay. And so what is the role of a senior brand strategist? Like, what do you do day to day in the organization?
Yeah, so a senior brand strategist is kind of someone who like sits, I feel like I'm a person who like sits between marketing, sales, and strategy. Like, I feel like all of those team members, like, we all go hand in hand, even research as well. But the bulk of my day, honestly, is that I'm responding to brand proposals. So like, a brand will come in, let's just say any brand, a retail brand, a beauty brand would come in, and they'll like actually send us a proposal that highlights their objective, that highlights their budget. It's going to highlight their target audience. It's going to highlight when they want to run their campaign. Like, if they want to do something surrounding hip-hop's 50th anniversary, for example, or they want to do something for Black History Month or Juneteenth, or they just want to do something for Mother's Day. Like, they'll give us all that information, and then I will take that proposal, see what I have within the collective, because we work with so many different Black-owned media partners and creators. So like, kind of digest what they're giving me. Sometimes we'll actually hop on a call with the agency just to like verbalize it, get more details. I'll take that intel and I will try to craft honestly just a beautiful PowerPoint that, but I say it's so simple, but it's not as simple as just a PowerPoint, but like just crafting the story of what I think would be the strongest recommendation based on what they're looking for.
And so how much of you can you put into that? Because I know you said sort of marketing and sales, but it sounds like it's really a culmination of, one, your work experience, but really your understanding of voice, your understanding of culture, your understanding of, how to connect the dots. And I would imagine, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine there has to be a certain level of creativity to be able to blend all those things cohesively to tell a story that's authentic to that particular audience or demographic and so on. So tell me how you actually walk through that process to be able to have a finished product that you believe in.
Yeah, and I think even sometimes, honestly, I would admit that I don't think I'm the person that knows it all. I think sometimes it means that I'm going to do my own research to get more details on certain experiences that maybe I'm not as familiar with. Like maybe if I'm working on a sports proposal, like I'm not the biggest sports person, so I will like tap different resources, whether that's like an actual team member who might just have that experience, like kind of have more of that experience than I do, or it means like I'm gonna just give myself a crash course because I still want to make sure that yes, I'm a Black woman, and yes, the whole goal is to reach Black consumers and to support these Black-owned media brands and creators, but I don't know it all and I haven't lived through every single experience. I think for me, it's just making sure that I've done the research to make sure that when I'm pitching these creators, for example, that I'm pitching them in a way that's appropriate and still feels authentic.
Okay, and now I'm a pivot a little bit, and sometimes these things you may have to take a moment to think about it, but I truly believe that the students or the listeners who are looking to enter a space, they look at the success stories. I believe we learn so much more from failure than we do success. Some of those lessons could be very hard or very expensive, but nonetheless they are lessons. And so if you could talk about or reflect back on your professional experience and tell me about a failure that you had or a lesson that you learned from a challenge that you had to overcome.
That's a good one. That's a good question, and I absolutely agree with you. I feel like you do learn from your mistakes. I'm just thinking a professional failure. I would honestly say one of the things that felt like a failure, it was the first role that I had fresh out of college. It was a role within the media industry, but the nature of the role looking back was something that I felt like didn't give me the strongest tools that I needed to really pivot myself in the direction that I wanted. I think the best way to phrase why it felt like a failure was just because of the resources. It was just kind of, I don't want to say too much about it, but it's like, it kind of felt like the nature of the program that they had placed us in wasn't designed for the benefits of the individuals in the program, but rather it was for the benefits of the company. So I felt like initially I was never really set up for success in the media industry. So I always felt like I was one step behind my graduating class or like my graduating peers. Not like it's a competition, but I did feel like I had put myself one step back rather than one step forward. Were you asking how I was able to get out of that? Okay, so definitely, I was able to get out of it simply because like the program ended, it was a timeline, but also once that timeline had came to an end, it was like, okay, what's next for me? I have to find a job. Unfortunately, the job that I selected, just because of my lack of knowledge and resources, that honestly was just not given to me. And I do think it has something to do with the fact that I'm first generation, the fact that I'm the only person in my family in this industry, the fact that I'm an immigrant. Like I do feel like all of those things did put to play as like, your girl just needed some money, your girl just needed a paycheck, she needed a job. So the job that she took right after that program that had already felt like it pushed me back was an executive assistant, which granted it was a role that was still within media, but I didn't realize that an executive assistant would have been so like admin heavy. So I felt like it still had pushed me so far back from what I wanted to do. But I think how I was able to overcome that was that I still like made sure to make connections and genuinely network. Like I usually hate the word networking because I'm thinking like it means here's my business card and just like let's call each other, but honestly networking is just like real genuine conversations and connections that you have when you meet people. So luckily I was able to have a good relationship with a lot of senior leadership, which led me to an incredible position that they trusted me to put me in. If I'm being honest, I felt like skills wise, I mean, I crushed it. But I mean, if you saw me on paper, you might have been like, she don't have all the skills that we're looking for. But it really just goes to show that building connections can take you where you need to be.
Amen. I definitely agree with that. And there's a lot that you said that really resonated with me, but so I'm just gonna take them in bites.
Yeah.
The one of the things that I find is most prevalent, particularly with people of color and specifically women of color, is that they tend to not go for roles that they don't see as they having all the qualifications for, rather than an opportunity like you just mentioned. You know, on paper it didn't look like I was qualified for this job, or you would never think that I would do that based upon what I am on paper, but you took that opportunity and you crushed it. What advice would you give for those who may have 3 or 4 of the 8 qualifications? Because people in the dominant culture, right, they'll go for it. You know, they'll go for it even if they don't have all the qualifications. And I think we miss out on a lot of opportunities because we feel that we have to have, you know, all of the qualifications to even go for it. So tell me, what was your mindset going into that and having the courage to actually do it? Because I know there's a level of perseverance and ambition that we have. Like if I get this opportunity, I know I'm going to work harder than anybody else. But that's hard to actually say out loud to yourself and then actually execute on it. So walk me through that process when you had that role.
Yeah. I think even going back, before I even walk you through the role, I think the advice that I would also want to give is the fact that even if you feel like you don't have 100% of the qualifications, go for it 100%. Like definitely still apply. But I don't think it's only about like sending your resume and hoping for the best. Like find who works there, see what conversations you can have. Like I'm gonna keep saying it, but shoot your shot. Like send that message, send that LinkedIn message. If you're an influencer, or you're maybe going more in influencer world, like send that social message, send that message on Instagram, like send that message, let them know that, kind of like, you know, be a fangirl, be a fanboy, like let them know like I see what you're doing, I like it, I want to learn more, and this is what I'm doing, and this is why I think I can be a part of this company or help, you know, elevate your company to the next level, without even saying, even though I don't have those skills. Like you don't even bring it up, because to be honest, somebody's gonna teach you, you're gonna learn. A skill is something that can be developed. Like you'll learn it if you have the passion, the desire, and you know this is something where you want to be and you want to do, or you just want to try it out, go for it. But I think going back to your question now is like, how did I have the mindset and the courage to even do it? If I'm being honest, I was scared. Like I honestly, at that point, I felt like I was super anxious. I even started therapy. I've been in therapy before, but I felt like I started therapy specifically because I was so anxious about that role and like just not really knowing what I was doing. Like I felt so like confused at first. I felt like I kind of went from, it's the truth, I'll just be as blunt. Like I felt like I went from an entry level role to like a mid-senior role. Not the role that I'm in right now. I'm doing so well, but I'm talking about the role when I'm happy to say the title. When I was an account manager, I felt like I knew nothing, not squat, not squadizzle, I didn't know nothing that was going on. But so I was anxious, but I was determined. I was determined to learn. I was determined to figure it out. Honestly, as simple as just like reading every single thing that came across my desk, like every single email, I would read it, every single message, no matter if I'm CC'd, BCC'd, I'm reading it because I want to kind of put those puzzle pieces together. And then talking to someone who's like not in the industry, like a professional therapy, don't really kind of understand what I'm doing, but just was able to give like that psych level of advice, which I think was helpful as well. And determination and your resources. I feel like I keep singing the same song, but having a group of people that's actually rooting for you obviously is definitely better when they get to look like someone like you, but sometimes there's allies as well, or like people that just see, they see you for, I don't really like to say they see you for more than your skin, because you should see my skin, and my skin is very important, but like just the fact that like there's people that just like you for you and want to help you because of who you are. So I think just tapping into those resources as well. I had so many people that from across different teams I was able to just kind of speak to on a weekly basis. And I had one person, I kind of felt like she was like my mom, and she would give me different advice about advertising, and she came on the research side, so she gave me that knowledge. Then I had one friend who like he was in a higher level role, but he was able to show me like what his world consisted of and how it like related back to my world. So like just having so many different conversations across different teams made me more confident in that role.
And you mentioned it before, but how important is relationship building? Because you talked about networking. And I agree with you. Networking, definitely the word or the phrase has been sort of positioned as very transactional.
Yes.
And I feel like based upon your explanation, you see it differently. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the importance of relationships as it relates to putting yourself in a position to go on the right career path?
Yes, and I love that. First off, I love that you said relationship building. I need to say that and stop saying networking, because networking does sound very transactional. I'm totally just gonna drop that word. But remind me, what was the part again? How did you see what?
How do you think, sort of reframe networking? Why is it so important? Why is it important to build those relationships? I mean, you went out on the limb and you reached out to folks on LinkedIn about the job, and then it ended up being the person I was interviewing. That was relationship building. You was planting seeds the whole time. Can you elaborate on sort of the importance of relationship building versus feeling like you have to network to get something, but more so, truly build a connection with the individual?
Yeah, I feel like it's important because like you in this world, no matter what industry you're in, no matter how solo you feel like your job is gonna be, like you're always gonna need people in your corner. Like no matter if you're the type of person that like really just wants to be head down and like don't want to work with nobody, like you just want to get your work done, clock in, clock out, and be out, like I don't think that exists at all. I think even looking at society in general, I mean, you build relationships with your family, you have relationship with your family members, the people that you live with, the people that you see every day. So why not build those relationships in a professional world as well? Because you spend so much time with these people, sometimes even more than the people that you live with, which is crazy to me. So I think just that element of like knowing that you're always going to need a team, no matter how solo your job or your day-to-day duties feel, you're going to always just need people in your corner. So I think just knowing that, and I think just kind of being yourself, I think is such an important piece. I think just like showing up exactly who you are, and then not feeling that like you have to put on this mask to show up to work every day or to show up to meet these people. I think just giving them like who you are, very raw and real. I mean, you'll keep it a little classy, of course, but like just kind of still being true to yourself is very crucial when you're building these relationships, because like you said, once you're planting these seeds, it's crazy to watch them blossom and grow. Like sometimes you forget that you planted that seed how long ago, and then before you know it, it's like just flourishing.
I really like that. I like that. what advice would you give, a young professional, entering any space, not necessarily what you do, but entering any space? Like, if you look back at your lived experience, what did you wish somebody would have told you when you were first starting out in your career?
Ooh, I wish they had told me and reminded me that the sky is the limit. Honestly, like, the sky is the limit. I wish somebody told me that. And I also wish somebody told me that, like, don't feel free, spend more time, like, asking questions and keep researching and keep being curious to see what's really out there and what's going on. Like, there's so much more there's so much in this world. There's so much money to be made in so much different niche positions and roles that you might just never heard about because you haven't been exposed to it. So, like, keep just digging and digging and digging until you make this big hole of different ideas in different places. Hopefully it's not overwhelming, but at least it, like, gets your brain, like, stimulated. And of course, I would definitely say keep building relationships. Keep your relationships. Meet people in your industry. Meet people who has your dream job. Meet someone that from 5 years from now, if you want to be a senior brand strategist, talk to that senior brand strategist, like, kind of like see what they're doing, hear about their day. And if, like, you're talking to them and you're getting excited, keep that relationship. But if you're talking to them and you're like, this is actually not what I want to be doing, then guess what? You just kind of learned that before you even got there. So build relationships, have those conversations, and research. Stay curious.
Mm-hmm. And I love books. I can
tell.
I'm definitely a nerd in a lot of different ways, but I'm curious to know what book or movie or a learning tool that you would offer up as a recommendation for somebody to really get some value from.
Yeah, so I think for my industry specifically, if you're curious about advertising and marketing and the different career routes that you can go, because there's so many directions you can go, and honestly, it's a good space financially to be in, I would highly recommend. I would definitely recommend reading different, like, industry trade articles. One of my favorite platforms is Ad Age, so I would definitely recommend that. Like, spend 20 minutes reading, keeping up with the trade, see what's going on with your morning coffee or tea, whatever you like. And I would also say for my industry specifically to check out IAB website, IAB, which stands for the Interactive Advertising Bureau. They also provide, like, very, like, industry standard information and language that is so crucial to just be in this space. And I think personally, notice I'm not the biggest reader. I will put on a podcast though, so I'm glad that we're here. I would say Atomic Habits. I'm sure so many of you guys maybe heard of that. There's also, like, a audiobook, if you don't like reading like me, by James Clear, has just kind of taught me how to, like, have successful daily routine and habits that kind of still puts me in the position that I am in today.
Okay, awesome. And then for my final question, which is always my favorite one, if you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
There's so many people I want to have dinner with for different reasons. For fun, this is just for shits and giggles. I would want to have dinner with Meredith Grey, just because I love Grey's Anatomy, but that's going off track. I think if I wanted to talk to someone, I, like, just within the entertainment industry, I definitely want to have dinner with Shonda Rhimes. I would want to have dinner. I'm choosing too many. I was also gonna say Kerry Washington for sure. But okay, so that's my three. I can't keep going, but that's hard. I want to eat with everybody, but they would be those three women would be ideal for me.
Awesome. And is there any words of wisdom or advice that you can give as a little gem or nugget for our listeners to walk away with?
Ooh, my words of wisdom to walk away with is, I'm just saying it again. So if you didn't catch it, maybe now you did, but keep nurturing those relationships. Don't be scared to say hello to new faces. When somebody asks how you're doing, you can say more than you're doing well. You know, just bring in more elements of conversation. And that's my words of wisdom. Keep building relationships.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time and your energy and your spirit. It was a pleasure talking to you. And I look forward to seeing all the amazing things you're going to do in this world.
Yes, thank you. It was so wonderful talking to you.